Hello and welcome back to my channel all about urns, where I like to talk about old things and languages, and preferably a combination between the two. Now, today I'm going to talk about something I think is particularly interesting, because if there was a tier list of the greatest writing systems ever invented in human history, this writing system would surely be in the GOAT position. And if you've already read the title to this video, you already know what it is. That's right, I'm talking about cuneiform. It is sublimely aesthetic and curiously interesting. And please allow me some of your time to give you a brief overview today of this fantastic writing system. And of course, as always, if you like this video or any of the other videos that I've done, please do me a favour and drop me a like and subscribe. It really does help me. It really does motivate me to continue making these videos. Now, with all that said and done, let's get into it. So cuneiform was around for a while. It probably originated around 3,500 years BC. Last attested examples of cuneiform date from around the 2nd century AD. Cuneiform was in use all throughout the Near East and adjacent areas, and examples of cuneiform inscriptions have been found as far away as Romania and Italy in the west and Turkmenistan in the east. Cuneiform was adopted as a writing system in a wide array of extremely interesting languages to study, including, but not exclusively, Sumerian, Akkadian, Hittite, Luwian, and Old Persian. Cuneiform evolved from pictograms and ideograms, so these are symbols which depict a concrete thing or an idea, to logograms, which are symbols which represent a single word, and finally onto syllables. Stone and metal were used as the carriers of the cuneiform script, so were probably perishable materials like wood, but the main vessel cuneiform is transformed to us today is the form of the clay tablet, of which there are tens of thousands in museums and collections all over the world, many of which are still untranslated due to the lack of cuneiformists. Cuneiformists? I guess that's the noun for someone who works with cuneiform. Cuneiform is a 3D language inherently, and reading it on paper is dramatically different to reading an inscription in real life. The etymology of cuneiform means wedge-shaped, and this comes from the 4 basic wedge styles that are compounded together to make a symbol. There's the vertical wedge, the horizontal wedge, the diagonal wedge, and the funnily named Winkelhaken. It looks like a little 3-pointed star. These wedges were made with a reed kind of chisel that was halved and then quartered to form like a triangular point. The specific aesthetic of cuneiform comes from primarily the choice of writing material, so that's clay, and the writing implement, this reed wedge I told you about. When our family tried to recreate Anatolian language inscriptions from Hittite cuneiform and Luwian hieroglyphs, it was very difficult to recreate the pictograms of the hieroglyphs in clay, particularly with a wooden or reed wedge. The clay would often pull or snag and generally not look very good and be very difficult to read. The hieroglyphs could be produced a little bit more cleanly, but you needed to use like a small array of metal tools, and even then it required practice. The cuneiform, however, whilst it did require some practice, was a lot easier to pick up. And basically all you had to do was insert the wedge into the clay and then use the edge of the wedge to draw that thin line that comes off the shape, and then you can create your cuneiform symbols. In my opinion, the pictograms or ideograms that we see, for example, in the hieroglyphics were just a pain in the butt to try and do, particularly in clay. And that's why these signs eventually evolved into the cuneiform style that we see today, impressed with this reed wedge, particularly as more people learnt the script, and presumably not everyone was some type of master stonemason or clay worker, and so it had to be doable by a larger variety, a wider range of people. And here we can see something that cuneiform and Ogham share in common. Ogham is a writing system that I covered in a video not too long ago, and I suggest you check out that video if you haven't already. Both Ogham and cuneiform have a specific aesthetic. Cuneiform with its wedged shaped inscriptions, an ogam with its central line and notches. And the aesthetics derive from the specific nature of the material being inscribed into. So for cuneiform, it's easier in clay to use the wedge-shaped system. And in ogam, they took advantage of this central line, which was naturally present on the edges of the stone monuments that they were carving into. Cuneiform, unfortunately, has no descendant scripts in usage today, and knowledge of it is quite limited. But don't let that put you off. It's surprisingly easy to read and write in, providing you're using clay and not paper, and of course you need some practice. But I think the most beautiful thing about cuneiform is just the way that it looks. It's sublimely aesthetic. And well, that's it from me today. I hope you found this brief introduction to cuneiform interesting. I've only scratched the surface of it. It's well worth reading online or picking up some good books. I can share some in the into the description of the video and learning more about this writing system. It really is interesting. I'll be back very shortly with another video. If you could do me the favor of liking and subscribing, I would appreciate that tremendously. All the best and have a great day.